Hello, my name is Chiara and I am from Bandung Institute of Technology. And today I will present and share about the research project that I've been working on with the title The Impact of Information Credibility Factors Towards the Online Consumer Engagement of Digital News Brands on Instagram. First of all, I want to say thank you for this opportunity and I hope today's presentation will be insightful. Enjoy! So before I start, I would like to mention that these are all the chapters that will be discussed in this presentation, starting from the first chapter of introduction all the way to chapter 5 of conclusion and recommendations. So first up, the introduction. As we all now are experiencing, most of our activities are integrated and transitioning into the digital world due to the fast paced technology development throughout the years, including the news industry. According to a data chart from a research on 2018, we can see that there's a decline in the printed media consumptions, or known as traditional media platforms like printed news and printed magazines. They are decreasing by 45% and 56% respectively. However, we can also see that there's an increase in the online media consumption by 12%. According to a data chart on 2020 of a survey, around 76% of respondents in Indonesia chooses social media as a platform to look for news and information. A survey conducted on 2022 stated that 93% of respondents in Indonesia chooses Instagram as their most used social media platform. Therefore, I gathered three digital news brands that are popular and most followed by people in Indonesia nowadays on Instagram, which are Focative, USS Feeds, and Narasi Newsroom. These media brands are most likely to share the same type of news and information topics, such as lifestyle, culture, entertainment, viral trending news, and some of them also cover heavy topics such as political government issues. Even though they share the same or similar news topics, each of these brands has their own uniqueness and originality when it comes to sharing media content on Instagram. However, these digital news brands might not be or has not been considered as the most credible and trustworthy platform to access the news and information. Based on a preliminary research that I have conducted, around 76% of the respondents feel that the most pain point that they receive from these digital news brands is that they lack of information completeness that are being presented. 60.4% of them said that they don't fully trust and use these digital news brands, even though they have the potential to become the main platform due to the shift from the traditional media that has been mentioned before. For about 84.4% of the respondents choose news credibility as the most important factor when choosing and using an online news platform. Therefore, this research has come to a conclusion of three research questions and objectives, which are: what are the factors that can influence the information credibility of digital news brands? What are the impacts of the online consumer engagement of digital news brands? And how is the difference of the online consumer engagement between the three digital news brands? Here are the research objectives that will be to know the factors that can influence information credibility and the impact towards online consumer engagement. This research will be limited to people who are a part of the millennials and Generation Z, since they are the target market of these digital news brands, an active Instagram user from Jabodetabek or Bandung area of Indonesia, and also following one of the three brands on Instagram. Now we have come to chapter 2, which is the literature review. There are 8 variables that will be used in this research project. The first five, which are medium dependency, interactivity, medium transparency, argument strength, and information quality, will be the independent variables serving as the potential factors of information credibility. Then we have information credibility and online trust as the mediating variables. And lastly, is online consumer engagement as the dependent variable. For the hypothesis development, here we have 5 hypotheses in determining the factors that can influence information credibility. The sixth hypothesis assumes information credibility has an impact towards online trust, and the last hypothesis assumes that online trust has an impact towards online consumer engagement. Here's the proposed framework with a combination of previous research and studies that are about information credibility factors, online trust, and also online consumer engagement. Now we have come to the third chapter, which is the research methodology. The type of data that will be gathered are primary and secondary data with the quantitative method of questionnaire using a judgmental sampling with the details that's been mentioned before in the scope and limitations. So, for the data analysis, to answer the research questions of this research, I combine four types of data analysis, which are normality tests and Kruskal-Wallis tests, to look for the differences between the variables of three different bands to answer the third research question. PLSM analysis to test the relationship of the hypothesis in this research, and also descriptive analysis to look for patterns and to support the findings in this research. We are now have come to the fourth chapter of data analysis results. The online questionnaire gathered a total of 319 respondents, and here's the overview of the respondents' profile. As we can see that the respondents of vocative has a more distinguished data in the age and occupation section. Vocative respondents are mostly young people ranging from 17 to 28 years old, and most of them are college students, while other brands like USS Feeds and Narasi Newsroom seems to have more distributed age range and occupations. For the respondents' behavioral, we can see that these three brands in this research are distributed evenly. So we can see also here that the respondents' dependency of receiving news online varies from each of the brand, and it seems to have almost 50-50% of being dependent and not dependent to these platforms. So almost half of them are dependent towards these digital news media brands to gain information, and some of them don't. However, the respondents are actually pretty active in participating in these platforms by liking, sharing, and reposting their news content on Instagram. Moving on to the descriptive analysis of all of the brands. This descriptive analysis are combined into one from three brands, and therefore, this will be the supporting patterns that will further explain the findings in this research. And here is the PLSM analysis result of all of the brands as a whole industry. Based on the results, all of the hypotheses were accepted. This means that all the independent variables are all factors influencing information credibility, and that information credibility also has an influence towards online trust and all the way to online consumer engagement. And that this result should also apply to each of the digital news brands independently. So, moving on to the normality test and Kruskal-Wallis test. The normality test was conducted to check if the data is normally distributed or not by determining the sig value. Since the sig value are all below zero point zero 0.05, the Kruskal-Wallis test was then conducted to see any differences between the variables of each brand by also determining the ISIM sig value. From these tests, the researcher continues to analyze the brands independently in order to answer the third research question, which is to look for the differences in each of the brand. Here's the descriptive analysis overview of each of the brand that will also further support the research findings. So here is the hypothesis result summary for each brand independently. In this table, we can see that there are hypotheses that are not accepted, which means that there are differences in each of the brands that might have caused the hypothesis to be rejected. This means that each of the respondents feel the difference of credibility level of each platform, therefore resulting in hypotheses that are not accepted. And now we have come to the last chapter of conclusion and recommendations. Here stated the conclusion for each of the research questions. So for the first research question, all of the independent variables have an influence towards information credibility. However, there are four factors that influence positively and one factor that influence negatively. So the factors that influence positively, there are medium dependency, medium transparency, argument strength, and information quality, while interactivity has a negative influence towards information credibility. The second research question, which is the impact for all brands as a whole, consists of all five dimensions of online consumer engagement, which are extraordinary experience presented by the OCE 6 indicator, awareness presented by the OCE 2 indicator, enthusiasm, activity, and also interaction, respectively. However, for the third research question, which is the differences, is that vocative only consists of four dimensions of online consumer engagement. USS Feeds only consists five dimensions, which is all of them, and Narasi Newsroom consists of three dimensions of online consumer engagement. After conducting the analysis and determining the conclusions, it has come to my attention to bring recommendations to these digital news brands that will improve the credibility of the platforms and have an increasing impact of consumer engagement. Following the previous rejected hypotheses of each brand, I provided recommendations for three factors that can be improved, which are medium dependency, medium transparency, and argument strength. So for the first variable, which is medium dependency, USS Feeds and Narasi Newsroom should engage in more collaborations with other brands for promotions. As we can see at Focative, whose medium dependency hypothesis was accepted, presents lots of collaboration contents with lots of brands like Aqua, Cadbury, and sometimes movie promotions that causes the high awareness of Focative itself and increases the dependency of audiences to be more involved in other activities other than just gaining news and information. For the medium transparency, all of the brands should demonstrate and provide greater transparency by showcasing or exposing the process and workflow involved in creating news content for all of the brands. This will give the audience the sense of openness and being honest of how news content are created in these platforms. And then lastly, for argument strength, which is specifically for Narasi Newsroom, they should provide more comprehensive statements and detailed information in every news content that they publish, since they are focusing on heavy topics such as political, governmental issues, and also worldwide issues. So therefore, it is very crucial for them to have detailed information so that the audience will have better understanding. And that concludes the presentation of this research project. Thank you for your time and attention. And if there are any feedbacks and questions, it will be highly appreciated. Thank you.